Hi, my name is Natasha. I have an 11-year-old autistic son, and his name is Khalil. We are heading into our 6th year of homeschooling, which is also him heading into the 6th grade. So these are the things that we have learned along the way. The most surprising thing that I didn't anticipate along this homeschooling journey was how much I would learn about myself, about my parenting style. I learned that in order for me to teach him patience and kindness and empathy, I had to first display it. In order for me to teach him to take time to yourself, to rest and recover from hard days, that I had to implement that for him, that I had to model communication and healthy boundaries in order to teach him boundaries. In order for me to teach him how to self-regulate, I first had to be emotionally regulated. I had to check myself several times and remind myself of the big picture. What am I trying to teach him in these moments? He will learn far more from what he is witnessing than from what I could ever actually teach him. The next thing I learned was to keep my expectations reasonable, not to expect too much, not to push too hard, because whenever I pushed really hard, it would come at a cost somewhere else. There might be a regression in another area. And so kind of balancing when to push and when to pull was a big lesson. Learning when to sacrifice days when he just wasn't feeling it and take time to rest. I became his IEP. I learned that I could make any accommodations and any modifications to any activity. I could create a curriculum that was tailor-made for him and his needs. I could implement new concepts. I could add in social skills, emotional skills. We can add in life skills and chores and hygiene. All the things that we need to work on. We could work on communication skills. Those are the things that he really needed. Another surprising one was that by me teaching him self-advocacy skills with scenarios that could potentially happen in the real world, he was first implementing the self-advocacy on me. So he would say, I didn't like that. I didn't appreciate the way you spoke to me. I didn't like this. I don't want to do this activity. I would rather wear this. I would rather eat that. He is first practicing with me, and then he has built the confidence to be able to do these things out in the community and advocate for his own needs. I have all the time in the world to feed his sensory needs. If he's clearly dysregulated and he's having a hard time, we're going to meditate. We're going to take time to listen to music. He's going to bounce. He can ask for Play-Doh, slime. He's going to use his self-advocacy skills, and I will give him options in order to figure out what best serves his needs in those hard moments. And he will work on self-expression so that he could advocate to me exactly what it is that he's feeling and why he's feeling it. He's getting down to the core of those emotions. Throughout the year, he gets the opportunity to use the skills that he's been practicing, be it in sports or social activities, in outings, on field trips. He gets to be out and communicating with others in the community. From year to year and season to season, our schedules kind of fluctuate and change. He is getting older now. We're working more on communication, so we are likely to start speech therapy again. That is going to happen 3 times a week. And so that kind of takes away some of our homeschooling time because we'll have to be traveling back and forth. And so it makes more sense that we have the ability to decide to homeschool year round so that we could better fit his therapies into our days. This also gives us an opportunity to potentially have him in activities such as swimming that will give him a life-saving skill. Did I ever imagine homeschooling? Absolutely not. We fell face first into it. Things just weren't working out, and it is still the best decision I could have ever made for him. He is blossoming into such an amazing young man. He's so thoughtful and kind and funny and loving and intentional about his minutes and hours. He is such a great communicator, and I see so much growth in him from day to day as he learns new skills, as he learns to better communicate and express himself. And I am just so humbled to be not only his mother, but his teacher. It is the best journey of my life, and I can't wait to see what these next few years bring for him and for me. We are headed into the 6th year of homeschooling our autistic son. Honestly, back to school time always brings a wave of emotions over me. It's around this time that we were undergoing the grueling autism diagnosis. The memories of driving to evaluations and doctor's appointments, calling and fighting insurance for therapy coverage, the fear after receiving his autism diagnosis with no real direction on where to and how to obtain resources for him, the dreaded IEP meetings for services that he'd be denied for and be offered just crumbs that wouldn't serve any assistance for him, meltdowns, shutdowns, overstimulation, the sleep deprivation, food aversion, sensory troubles, choking incidents, the sadness and disappointment I felt when I couldn't obtain the resources he needed desperately, the heartbreak I felt when he experienced his 2.5-year-long episode of selective mutism, watching his confidence disappear, the terrifying realization that I needed to withdraw him from school in order to rebuild his self-confidence, the fear I felt when I started this homeschooling journey. Was I qualified? Could I do this? Would I fail him? What were the financial sacrifices we had to make? Then along the journey, I found myself, I was healing my inner child as I healed him. I actively heard him and listened and was able to meet his needs and become his IEP. I learned patience, understanding, and advocacy. Absolutely, I got you. When we first started writing, we started with the beginner pencil, and it was just way too big and too long and too heavy for his hand. So we started to cut them in half, and that helped a lot. And then we did the rubber band method, which was just looping it around and then bringing it back. That kept the pencil in his hand. And even then, he had trouble keeping his wrist down low enough to write. Then we introduced the binder method for that problem. That helped him keep his arm at the angle that it needed to be so that he could just rest his arm and go ahead and write. We used a small weight to put around his wrist, and that helped to kind of train his arm to stay in the position it needs to. You're not going to use one this heavy. You would get the very lightest one. His arm would stay where it needs to be to write. Then we started to use the regular pencil. However, we used a grip. He prefers his beginner pencils at the age of 11. We did lots of coloring activities. He started off like this, and over time with practicing the pencil, he learned to hold it in different ways. We did lots of Play-Doh and putty. I would bury these inside of the putty, and you would have to pull them all and find them. We did lots of fine motor skill activities with clothespins. Punching holes is another really great one because he really has to squeeze in order to get the holes. Pinching pennies and coins. Those are the muscles you need to fortify to write. We started off with adapted scissors. We practiced cutting. These fed his sensory needs as well as helped him express his emotions. We did lots of tearing, and then we would have him ball them up. These also really helped with learning to cut with scissors and overall helped his writing. He could pick up the balls and put them in a different area. We started with chapsticks. He still isn't able to use it without the rubber band yet, but then he could go from one bowl to the next, fortifying those muscles. Basing activities was also one of our favorites because he gets to practice his fine motor skills, and we even made a small blanket. This was also one of the most helpful ones. So he had trouble spacing out his words. He would write things all together. And so this would help him. I'd have him write the, and then he'd put the two fingers here, and then he'd write cat, sat. And of course, over time, now he's aware of the space and has brought them much closer together, and now he's writing beautifully. In the early years, these activities were really fun for him to identify letters, and we would use the bingo marker. So I would tell him, find the letter that says right now, this is one of his favorite ones to kind of manipulate. I hope this helps. I hope this chaos now makes a little more sense. Regardless, they need time. Sometimes they're just not ready. Sometimes they need to fortify those muscles even more by doing different activities and overall gross motor activities. So keep working them out. Keep using sensory breaks as a way to train their little muscles to get stronger and stronger, and soon they will be writing beautifully.
Our library can best be described as organized chaos. It is built around anchor topics that I consistently invest in and revisit year after year. These topics form the foundation of our library, lesson plans, and unit studies. Revisiting them from new perspectives as my son grows allows us to deepen our understanding and connect with them meaningfully. For instance, a future unit will explore jazz. We'll learn about legends like Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker, Muddy Waters, Tito Punt, Trombone Shorty, Mr. Bojangles, and Josephine Baker. Alongside listening to jazz, we'll read jazz poetry books and biographies, including one about Ray Charles. His story will open discussions about visual impairments and resilience. To enhance the experience, we might visit an instrument shop, learn about musical instruments, or attend a live jazz concert, creating lasting memories. This unit also incorporates science as we study the anatomy of the ear, exploring how sound travels and how hearing works. We'll discuss hearing impairments and read a graphic novel by a deaf author, gaining insight into their experiences with a hearing aid. This fosters empathy and understanding. We'll also study vision, exploring the anatomy of the eye, blindness, and the lives of figures like Helen Keller and Louis Braille. Using a tactile Braille alphabet set, my son can experience the letters through sensory play, making the lessons engaging and memorable. We'll learn about Dr. Patricia Bath, a Black inventor who developed tools to restore vision for underserved patients. Her story highlights compassion and innovation. This could be paired with a vision or hearing test to connect with real-world professionals and their work. Social studies will tie in as we learn basic sign language and explore laws promoting inclusivity for individuals with disabilities. We'll discuss advocacy and how it helps create a more equitable society. Finally, we'll study the five senses through hands-on activities, incorporating mindfulness. We'll explore the power of words and how they can build others up or tear them down. Reflecting on thoughts and actions, we'll teach my son kindness toward himself and others. This interdisciplinary unit combines history, science, art, literature, and social-emotional learning. It connects subjects in meaningful ways, fostering curiosity, empathy, and confidence. I hope this offers a helpful glimpse into our homeschooling approach.